The blood on Olivia Zimmerman's hands was from the calf she had just delivered in the middle of Main Street, but the women of Salina, Kansas, saw only another reason to whisper behind their gloved hands about the scandalous young widow who let her 5-year-old son run barefoot through town. It was August of 1878, and the heat shimmered off the dusty street as Olivia wiped her palms on her already stained apron, ignoring the pointed stares from the ladies emerging from the general store. Her son, Thomas, sat cross-legged beside her, his small hands gentle on the newborn calf's spotted hide, murmuring soft words of encouragement the way his mother had taught him. The mother cow, who had gone into distress right in front of the bank, lowed softly as Olivia checked her over with practiced efficiency. "Disgraceful," Margaret Henderson pronounced loud enough for half the street to hear. What kind of mother drags her child into such unseemly situations? The boy should be in school, learning proper behavior, not playing veterinarian in the dirt. Olivia's jaw tightened, but she kept her focus on the cow. She had heard worse in the 6 months since her husband died, leaving her with nothing but a small homestead, a son to raise, and a reputation that seemed to crumble more with each passing day. The fact that she had a natural gift with animals, that farmers from 3 counties over sought her help when their livestock fell ill, meant nothing to the respectable women of Salina. They saw only a woman who worked like a man, who wore trousers under her skirts when she had to climb into pens, who let her son witness the raw realities of birth and death and survival. "Mama, is she going to be all right?" Thomas asked, his green eyes worried as he stroked the calf's ear. "She's going to be just fine, sweetheart. And so is her baby. You did a good job keeping calm for them." Olivia smiled at her son, her heart swelling with pride at his compassion. At 5 years old, Thomas had more kindness in his little finger than most grown men she knew. "That child needs a firm hand," another voice chimed in. Olivia did not need to look up to know it was Constance Miller, the banker's wife. "Running wild like an animal himself. It's a shame what that poor boy is being subjected to." The words stung more than Olivia wanted to admit. She was doing her best, working dawn to dusk to keep food on their table, to keep the small house her husband had built from falling into disrepair. Thomas was loved, fed, clothed, and happy. But in the eyes of Salina's elite, she was failing him simply by being who she was. The cow's owner, old Ben Hutchins, came huffing up the street, his face red with exertion and relief. "Mrs. Zimmerman, I can't thank you enough. When she bolted from the property, I thought for sure I'd lose both of them." Olivia stood, helping Thomas to his feet. "The calf is healthy and the mother just needs rest. Keep them in the barn tonight. Make sure she has plenty of water." Ben pressed $3 silver into her palm. It was more than generous, but Olivia knew he could afford it. She also knew she needed it desperately. "You're a godsend, madam. Don't listen to them old hens. You've got a gift, and you're raising that boy right." The words were kind, but they did not erase the shame that burned in Olivia's chest as she took Thomas's hand and led him down the street toward home. She could feel the eyes following them, could hear the whispers that picked up as soon as they passed. Her son's bare feet patted in the dust beside her, and she remembered with a pang that his only pair of shoes had worn through last week. She was saving to buy new ones, but there was always something else that needed paying for first. "Mama, why do those ladies say mean things about us?" Thomas asked quietly. Olivia's heart broke a little. She knelt down in the street, cupping her son's face in her work-roughened hands. "Because people sometimes judge what they don't understand, sweetheart. But you and I, we know the truth. We know we love each other, and we're doing our best. That's all that matters." "I don't mind not having shoes right now," Thomas said earnestly. "I know you're saving up, and I like helping you with the animals." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes. "You are the best thing in my whole world, Thomas Zimmerman. Don't you ever forget that." They walked the rest of the way home in comfortable silence, but Olivia's mind churned with worry. The town council had been making noises lately about proper care for children. She had heard rumors that they were considering ordinances about education, about suitable living conditions. The way things were going, she feared someone might actually try to take Thomas from her, claim she was unfit. The thought made her stomach turn to ice. Their homestead sat on the outskirts of town, a small wooden house with a barn, a chicken coop, and a few acres of land that Olivia somehow managed to keep productive. It was not much, but it was theirs, and she was fiercely proud of it. As they approached, she saw a figure leaning against the fence, a tall man in dusty traveling clothes, with a worn cowboy hat pulled low over his eyes. A painted horse stood nearby, its reins loose. Olivia's hand instinctively moved to the knife she kept at her belt. Strange men showing up at a widow's property rarely meant anything good. "Can I help you?" she called out, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The man straightened and pushed his hat back, revealing a weathered face that spoke of years spent under the sun and stars. He looked to be in his late 20s, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and eyes the color of a stormy sky. There was something immediately striking about him, a quiet confidence that had nothing to do with arrogance. "Mrs. Zimmerman, my name is Vincent Vale. I'm looking for work, and I heard in town that you might need a hand around your place." Olivia almost laughed. "I'm sure you heard a lot of things in town, and I'm sure none of them included the fact that I have no money to pay a hired hand." Vincent shrugged, his expression unbothered. "I'm not looking for much. Just a place to sleep, meals, and maybe a little bit for supplies now and then. I know my way around a farm, and your fence line is looking pretty rough. Barn roof could use some work, too." It was true. Olivia had been trying to patch the fence for weeks, but there were never enough hours in the day. And the barn roof had been leaking since the spring rains, but taking on a stranger, especially a man, would only give the town more ammunition against her. "I appreciate the offer, but I can manage on my own." "Mama, the fence is falling down," Thomas piped up helpfully. "And you said the chickens might get out if we don't fix it soon." Vincent's eyes moved to Thomas, and something in his expression softened. "That's a mighty helpful boy you've got there, madam." "That's what I keep trying to tell people," Olivia muttered, then immediately regretted saying it out loud. She did not need to air her grievances to strangers. But Vincent just nodded slowly, as if he understood far more than she had said. "Look, Mrs. Zimmerman, I can see you're doing everything you can here, and I can see you're doing a fine job of it too. But everybody needs help sometimes. Let me stay for a week, fix up what needs fixing. If you're not satisfied, I'll move on. If you are, maybe we can work out a longer arrangement." There was something about his voice, calm and genuine, that made Olivia want to trust him. Or maybe she was just tired of carrying everything alone. She studied him for a long moment, weighing her options. She could see the calluses on his hands, the wear on his boots that spoke of honest work. His horse was well cared for, her coat glossy despite the dust of travel. "1 week," she finally said. "You can sleep in the barn loft. I'll provide 3 meals a day. After that, we'll see." Vincent's face broke into a smile that transformed his whole appearance, and Olivia felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. She pushed it aside firmly. She had no time or energy for such foolishness. "Thank you, madam. You won't regret it." As he led his horse toward the barn, Thomas tugged on Olivia's sleeve. "I like him, Mama. Don't go getting attached, sweetheart. He'll probably be moving on soon enough." But even as she said it, Olivia found herself hoping she might be wrong. That evening, after Vincent had settled his horse and stowed his few belongings in the loft, Olivia called him in for supper. She had made a simple stew with vegetables from her garden and a bit of salt pork, along with fresh bread. It was plain fare, but Vincent ate with evident appreciation, complimenting her cooking with a sincerity that made her flush with unexpected pleasure. Thomas chattered through the meal, telling Vincent all about the calf that had been born in town, about how his mama was the best animal doctor in Kansas, about his favorite chicken named Henrietta. Vincent listened with genuine interest, asking questions and laughing at Thomas's enthusiastic descriptions. "Your boy's got a good heart," Vincent said after Thomas had been sent to wash up for bed. "You're raising him right." Olivia's hand stilled on the dishes she was washing. You're the only person in this town who seems to think so. Then this town is full of fools. Vincent brought his plate to the basin, standing close enough that Olivia could smell the clean scent of the soap he had used to wash up. I saw how gentle he was with that calf today. I was in town getting supplies when the commotion started. Watched the whole thing. You saw that? Olivia felt her cheeks heat with embarrassment, remembering her stained clothes and dirty hands. I saw a woman who knew exactly what she was doing, who worked with skill and compassion to save 2 lives. I saw a boy learning from his mother that being kind matters more than being proper. And I saw a bunch of small-minded people who wouldn't know good parenting if it bit them on the backside. The words, spoken with such matter-of-fact conviction, made something tight in Olivia's chest loosen. She realized she was dangerously close to crying and turned back to the dishes quickly. Thank you, she managed. That means more than you know. Vincent was quiet for a moment, then said softly, I lost my mother when I was about Thomas's age. My father did his best, but it was hard. I remember people talking about how we weren't respectable, how we needed a woman's touch in our home. But my father loved me, and he taught me everything important. I turned out all right. Your boy will too. Olivia glanced over at him, seeing the sincerity in those storm-gray eyes. Where's your father now? Passed about 3 years ago. Been drifting since then, working where I can, trying to figure out what comes next. He smiled, but there was sadness in it. Turns out home matters more than I thought it did when I had one. Before Olivia could respond, Thomas called from his small bedroom, asking for his mother to tuck him in. She excused herself, leaving Vincent to finish cleaning up. As she sat on the edge of Thomas's bed, listening to him say his prayers and ask God to bless their new friend Vincent, Olivia felt the first stirrings of something she had not felt since her husband died. Not quite hope, but maybe the possibility of it. The next morning, Olivia woke to the sound of hammering. She dressed quickly and found Vincent already at work on the fence, his shirt sleeves rolled up against the rising heat. He had clearly started before dawn, and a significant section of the broken fence had already been repaired. You didn't have to start so early, she called out. Vincent looked up, wiping sweat from his forehead, wanted to get a jump on it before the heat gets too bad. Besides, I'm used to early mornings. Thomas tumbled out of the house, still in his nightshirt, and ran to see what Vincent was doing. Olivia should have called him back to get dressed, but the joy on her son's face stopped her. Vincent was patiently explaining how to properly set a fence post, letting Thomas help hold the tools, treating the boy's questions with respect. As the day wore on, Olivia went about her own work, tending to the chickens, weeding the garden, and preparing to go check on a horse that had thrown a shoe at the Mathers farm down the road. She tried not to watch Vincent too obviously, but she found her gaze drawn to him again and again. He worked with steady efficiency, never rushing but never wasting motion either. And he was patient with Thomas, who followed him around like a devoted puppy, chattering endlessly and trying to help. When Olivia announced she needed to go to the Mathers place, Vincent immediately offered to watch Thomas. She hesitated, old wariness making her cautious, but Thomas was already begging to stay and help Vincent. She finally agreed, giving her son strict instructions to mind his manners and not be a nuisance. He's no nuisance, Vincent said firmly. We'll be just fine. The Mathers farm was an hour's ride away, and by the time Olivia had examined the horse, treated an abscess that had formed under the thrown shoe, and ridden back home, the afternoon sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon. She returned to find Vincent and Thomas in the barn, working together to repair a broken stall door. They were both filthy, covered in dust and wood shavings, and laughing about something. The scene hit Olivia with unexpected force. It had been so long since Thomas had had a man in his life, someone to look up to and learn from. Her husband had been a good father in the brief time he had with Thomas, but the boy had been so young when fever took him. Seeing her son now, his face glowing with happiness, as Vincent showed him how to sand a rough edge smooth, made Olivia realize just how much they had both been missing. Mama, look, I helped fix the door. Thomas ran to her, tugging her hand to show off their work. I can see that. You did a wonderful job. She smiled at her son, then looked at Vincent over his head. Thank you for watching him. Pleasure was all mine. He's good company. Vincent straightened, brushing wood shavings from his pants. How was the horse? Abscess under the shoe. Painful but treatable. He'll be fine in a few days. Olivia paused, then added, Mrs. Mathers paid me with a ham. I thought we could have it for dinner tomorrow. That sounds mighty fine. Vincent's smile was warm, and Olivia felt that flutter in her chest again, stronger this time. That evening, after Thomas was asleep, Olivia and Vincent sat on the porch steps, listening to the crickets and watching the stars emerge. It was a companionable silence, the kind that felt natural rather than awkward. Can I ask you something? Vincent said finally. I suppose. What happened to your husband? If you don't mind my asking. Olivia was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Fever took him last winter. It came on fast. One day he was fine. The next, he was burning up. 3 days later, he was gone. She wrapped her arms around herself, remembering those awful days. He was a good man, steady, kind. We married young, had Thomas right away. He was a blacksmith in town, had a good business going. When he died, his partner bought out his share of the shop. Gave me enough to get by for a few months, but it ran out fast. So you started working with animals? I always had a knack for it. My father was a veterinarian back in Ohio. He taught me everything before he died. After my husband passed, people started coming to me when they had sick livestock. The men didn't mind so much. They just wanted their animals healthy. But the women in town saw it as improper. And when I had to bring Thomas with me because I had no one to watch him, it just got worse. Vincent shook his head slowly. Like I said, fools, you're doing honest work, providing for your son. There's nothing improper about that. Try telling that to the church ladies. Olivia laughed, but there was bitterness in it. They've decided I'm a terrible mother because Thomas doesn't wear shoes every single day, because he gets dirty helping me work, because I can't afford the fancy clothes their children wear. Never mind that he's healthy and happy and loved. He is loved, Vincent said quietly. Anyone with eyes can see that. The way he looks at you, the way you are with him. I've never seen better. The words were simple, but they hit Olivia with the force of a thunderstorm. She felt tears spring to her eyes and tried to blink them back. I'm trying so hard, she whispered. But sometimes I feel like I'm failing him anyway. Vincent shifted closer, his shoulder almost touching hers. You're not failing him, not even close. Those women who judge you, they have husbands bringing in steady money, they have help, they have security. And even with all that, I bet half their kids aren't half as good-hearted as Thomas. You're doing all of it alone, and you're doing it well. That takes strength most people will never understand. Olivia let the tears fall then, silently, gratefully. She could not remember the last time someone had seen her, really seen her, and thought she was enough. Vincent did not try to touch her or offer empty comfort. He just sat beside her, steady and solid, letting her know she was not alone. The week that had been Vincent's trial period stretched into 2 weeks, then 3. He worked tirelessly around the property, fixing everything that had fallen into disrepair. The fence was solid now. The barn roof no longer leaked. The chicken coop had been reinforced against predators. He even built a new set of shelves in the kitchen that made Olivia's limited supplies much easier to organize. But more than the physical work, Vincent brought something else to the homestead. He brought laughter, conversation, an extra pair of hands when Olivia was called out to tend to animals. He watched Thomas when she had to make long trips, and under his supervision, her son was learning skills that would serve him well in life. How to care for a horse properly, how to mend a saddle, how to judge the weather from the sky and the behavior of animals. The people in Salina noticed, of course. They always noticed everything. The gossip about the widowed Zimmerman now included scandalous speculation about the cowboy living on her property. Olivia heard the whispers when she came to town for supplies, saw the disapproving looks, but somehow, with Vincent beside her, it was easier to ignore. He had a way of standing tall and meeting people's eyes that dared them to speak their judgment out loud. Most were too cowardly to do so. One Saturday morning in early September, Olivia was in town picking up supplies when Constance Miller approached her with a thin smile that promised nothing good. "Mrs. Zimmerman, I feel it's my Christian duty to inform you that the town council is very concerned about the situation at your homestead." Her voice was syrupy sweet, but her eyes were cold. "A single woman living with a strange man, a child being raised in such circumstances. It's simply not appropriate." Olivia felt her stomach drop, but she kept her voice level. "Mr. Vale is my hired hand. He lives in the barn and helps with the farm work. There's nothing inappropriate about it. Nevertheless, people are talking. The council is considering whether young Thomas would be better served in a different environment, perhaps with a proper family in town who could give him the advantages you cannot." The threat was clear, and it made Olivia's blood run cold. "You have no right to take my son from me. I'm a good mother." "That's a matter of perspective." "Dear!" Constance's smile sharpened. "We'll be watching closely. Very closely." Olivia managed to hold herself together long enough to finish her shopping and get back to the wagon. But as she drove out of town, her hands shook on the reins and fear clawed at her throat. They were going to try to take Thomas. She had been naive to think they would just keep talking and never act on their disapproval. She was so distracted that she did not notice the approaching rider until he was almost upon her. She looked up to find Vincent riding alongside the wagon on his painted mare, concern written clearly on his face. "I saw you leaving town. You looked upset. Thought I'd ride out to meet you." He studied her face and his expression darkened. "What happened?" Olivia told him about the conversation with Constance, and by the time she finished, Vincent looked genuinely angry. "They can't just take a child from his mother because they disapprove of her lifestyle," he said hotly. "That's not how the law works." "Maybe not the law, but small-town politics are different. If enough influential people decide I'm unfit, they'll find a way." Olivia's voice broke. "I can't lose him, Vincent. He's everything to me." Vincent was quiet for a long moment, his jaw tight. Then he said carefully, "There's one way to make this all go away, to give them no grounds to question your respectability or Thomas's situation." Olivia looked at him questioningly. "Marry me." The words hung in the air between them, shocking in their simplicity. Olivia pulled the wagon to a stop, staring at Vincent in disbelief. "What?" Vincent dismounted and came to stand beside the wagon, looking up at her with serious eyes. "Marry me. If we're married, they can't say anything about me living on the property. They can't question whether Thomas has a proper home or a father figure. It solves everything." "That's insane," Olivia whispered. "Vincent, we barely know each other. You can't just marry someone to solve their problems." "Why not? People marry for worse reasons. For money, for land, for convenience." He reached up and took her hand, his touch warm and steady. "Olivia, these past few weeks have been the happiest I've been in years. I love this place, I love the work, and I love being around you and Thomas. I'm not proposing out of pity or duty. I'm proposing because I can't imagine being anywhere else." Olivia's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. She looked down at their joined hands, at the calluses that matched her own, at the strength and gentleness in his grip. She thought about how much lighter her burdens had felt with him beside her, how Thomas had blossomed with a man's guidance, how she had caught herself watching Vincent and feeling things she thought had died with her first husband. "I don't love you," she said. But even as the words left her mouth, she wondered if they were entirely true. "I know, and that's all right." But maybe you could someday. And in the meantime, we'd be partners, friends, a family. Vincent's voice was soft but certain. I'm not asking you to feel something you don't. I'm just asking you to let me help you protect what matters most. And if love comes along the way, well, that would be a blessing. Olivia closed her eyes, feeling tears slide down her cheeks. It was a practical solution to an impossible problem. And if she was honest with herself, the idea of being Vincent's wife did not fill her with dread. Quite the opposite. Over the past weeks, she had grown to trust him, to value his opinion, to look forward to their evening conversations, and the way he made her laugh. She admired his work ethic, his kindness, his patience with Thomas. What if it doesn't work? She whispered. What if you change your mind? Decide this isn't what you want? I won't. I'm not a man who makes promises lightly, Olivia. If I say I'm in this for good. He squeezed her hand gently. Give me a chance. Give us a chance. Let me stand beside you and show this town that you are exactly the mother Thomas needs, and that he has a family that will fight for him. Olivia opened her eyes and looked into Vincent's face, seeing nothing but sincerity and determination. She thought about Thomas, about keeping him safe, about giving him the stable home he deserved. She thought about the loneliness that had been her constant companion since her husband died, and how that loneliness had eased since Vincent arrived. All right, she said finally. Yes, I'll marry you. Vincent's face broke into that transformative smile, and he reached up to help her down from the wagon. When her feet touched the ground, he pulled her into an embrace that was warm and solid and felt startlingly right. Thank you, he murmured against her hair. I promise you won't regret this. Olivia let herself lean into his strength for just a moment, letting the fear and tension drain away. Maybe this was crazy. Maybe it was reckless. But it also felt like the first truly hopeful decision she had made in months. They were married 3 days later by the preacher in Salina, with Thomas standing between them and old Ben Hutchins serving as witness. The ceremony was brief and simple, with no fancy dress or celebration. But when Vincent slipped a plain gold band onto Olivia's finger, a ring he had bought with his carefully saved wages, she felt the weight of it like a promise. The town was shocked, as she had known they would be, but the gossip changed character. Now, instead of whispering about scandal, they grudgingly acknowledged that at least the situation had been made respectable. Constance Miller looked like she had swallowed a lemon when she saw them in church that Sunday, Vincent sitting beside Olivia with his arm along the back of the pew, Thomas perched proudly between them. The first few weeks of marriage were strange, an adjustment for both of them. Vincent moved his things from the barn loft into the house, taking the small room that had served as storage. He was unfailingly respectful, never pushing for more than Olivia was ready to give. They fell into a rhythm of partnership, working side by side during the day, sharing meals and conversation in the evening, each retreating to their separate rooms at night. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, things began to shift. Olivia found herself seeking out Vincent's company, valuing his opinion on everything from which crops to plant to how to handle Thomas's occasional stubbornness. Vincent, in turn, began to relax into the role of husband and father, making decisions about the homestead with confidence, roughhousing with Thomas in the evenings, and finding small ways to make Olivia's life easier. One evening in late September, as Olivia was cleaning up after dinner, Vincent came up behind her and gently took the dish towel from her hands. You've been on your feet all day. Go sit down. I'll finish these. I can do it, Olivia protested, but without much conviction. She was exhausted, having spent the day helping a difficult birth with one of the dairy cows at the Peterson ranch. I know you can, but you don't have to do everything alone anymore. Vincent turned her gently by the shoulders and guided her toward the chair by the fireplace. Rest. Olivia sank into the chair gratefully, watching as Vincent efficiently finished the dishes. Thomas was already asleep, worn out from a day of playing and helping with chores. The house was quiet and peaceful, filled with the soft sounds of domesticity. Vincent dried his hands and came to sit in the chair opposite hers. In the firelight, his face was warm and open, and Olivia was struck by how handsome he was, something she had noticed but not really let herself acknowledge before. Olivia, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy? With this arrangement, I mean. With me being here. There was vulnerability in his voice, as if he genuinely feared she might say no. Olivia considered the question seriously. Yes, she said finally. I am. More than I expected to be, if I'm honest. You've been so good to Thomas and me. Patient and kind and steady. I feel like I can breathe again, like the weight of the world isn't all on my shoulders anymore. Vincent's face relaxed into a smile. Good, because I'm happy too. Happier than I've been in a long time. This feels like home, Olivia. You and Thomas feel like family. You are family, Olivia said softly. That ring on your finger makes it official. Vincent looked down at the simple gold band on his own hand, matching hers. I know this started as a practical arrangement, but I want you to know that it's become more than that for me. I care about you, Olivia. Not just as a partner or a friend, but as my wife. And I know that might not be what you want to hear, that it might complicate things, but I needed you to know. Olivia's heart was racing. She stood up and crossed to where Vincent sat, her movements slow and deliberate. When she reached him, she held out her hand. He took it, looking up at her with questions in his eyes. It's not complicating things, she whispered. Because I feel it too. I have been trying not to, trying to keep this simple and practical. But the truth is, I care about you too, Vincent. More every day. Vincent stood, still holding her hand, and for a long moment they just looked at each other. Then slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, he leaned down and kissed her. It was gentle and sweet, a question and an answer all at once. Olivia kissed him back, feeling something tight and guarded in her chest finally break open. When they pulled apart, both of them were breathing hard. Vincent rested his forehead against hers, his hands framing her face. I love you, he said simply. I think I have since the day I watched you deliver that calf in the middle of town, covered in blood and dirt and not caring one bit what anyone thought because you were too busy saving a life. Olivia laughed, a sound of pure joy. I love you too. I think I've been falling for weeks but was too stubborn to admit it. They kissed again, longer this time, deeper. When they finally broke apart, Vincent took her hand and led her to the bedroom they would now share. Their coming together that night was tender and passionate, a claiming and a surrendering all at once. Afterward, lying in Vincent's arms in the darkness, Olivia felt a peace she had not known since before her first husband died, maybe even before that. This felt different, built on friendship and respect as much as attraction and need. Thank you, she whispered against Vincent's chest. For what? For seeing me, for seeing Thomas, for not listening to what everyone else said and making up your own mind. Vincent pressed a kiss to her forehead. I've never seen better, he murmured. A better mother, a better woman, a better person. This town is full of blind fools if they can't see what I see. Olivia fell asleep, smiling, wrapped in warmth and safety and love. The months that followed were the happiest of Olivia's life. She and Vincent worked as true partners, their homestead thriving under their joint care. Vincent expanded the barn and bought 2 more cows, planning to build up a small dairy operation. Olivia's reputation as an animal healer continued to grow, and with Vincent to help manage the homestead, she could take on more clients, bringing in steady income. Thomas flourished with Vincent's attention and guidance. The boy who had been running barefoot now had new shoes, bought with money they had saved together. He was learning to read and write from Vincent in the evenings, getting an education that satisfied even the most critical townsfolk. But more than that, he was learning what it meant to be part of a family, to have a father who loved him and a mother who was no longer exhausted and worried all the time. The town slowly, grudgingly, began to change its opinion of Olivia. It was hard to maintain that she was a bad mother when her son was so obviously thriving, when her homestead was prospering, when she and Vincent attended church every Sunday as a respectable married couple. The whispers faded, replaced by cautious nods of greeting, then eventually by actual conversation. One cold morning in November, Olivia woke feeling queasy. She made it outside just in time to be sick behind the house. Vincent found her there a few minutes later, his face creased with concern. "Are you all right? Should I ride for the doctor?" Olivia wiped her mouth and looked up at her husband, a slow smile spreading across her face despite her discomfort. "I don't need a doctor. I need a midwife. Vincent, I'm pregnant." The look of absolute joy that transformed Vincent's face made Olivia laugh despite feeling terrible. He whooped loud enough to wake Thomas and probably the neighbors, then picked Olivia up and spun her around before remembering her condition and setting her down carefully. "Are you sure? When? How long?" "I'm sure, and I'd say about 2 months along. We'll have a baby sometime in late spring or early summer." Olivia placed a hand on her still flat stomach, marveling at the life growing inside her. Vincent knelt down and pressed his ear to her stomach, as if he could hear the baby already. "Hello in there," he said softly. "This is your papa. I can't wait to meet you." Thomas came running out, demanding to know what all the excitement was about. When they told him he was going to be a big brother, he danced around the yard, whooping even louder than Vincent had, making both adults laugh. As winter settled over Kansas, the homestead was warm with love and anticipation. Olivia continued her work through the pregnancy, slowing down only as she grew larger and more uncomfortable. Vincent was attentive to the point of hovering, constantly making sure she was not overdoing it, bringing her tea and extra blankets, rubbing her aching back in the evenings. The baby was born on a hot June night in 1879, with Vincent holding Olivia's hand and the midwife coaching her through the labor. It was a boy, healthy and strong, with a shock of dark hair and lungs that proved he had no trouble making his presence known. "What should we name him?" Vincent asked, cradling his son with a tenderness that made Olivia's heart overflow. "I was thinking about your father. What was his name?" John Vale." "Then John he is. John Vincent Vale." Olivia smiled at her husband and their new son. A good, strong name. Thomas was completely enamored with his baby brother, wanting to help with everything from diaper changes to the rare moments when the baby actually slept. Vincent was a natural father, patient and loving, getting up in the night to bring John to Olivia for feeding, walking the floor with a colicky baby so she could rest, somehow managing to run the homestead and care for his growing family without ever seeming overwhelmed. As John grew from infant to toddler, the homestead continued to prosper. Vincent's dairy operation was successful enough that they hired a young man from town to help with the daily work. Olivia's reputation brought clients from as far as Wichita, people willing to pay good money for her expertise with difficult animal cases. They were not wealthy, but they were comfortable, secure in a way Olivia had never dreamed possible during those dark months after her first husband died. The town's attitude toward her had completely reversed. The same women who had once whispered about her incompetence now asked her advice about their own children. Constance Miller actually apologized one day, admitting that she had been hasty in her judgment and that Olivia was clearly an excellent mother. It was a grudging apology, but Olivia accepted it with grace, having learned that holding on to bitterness only poisoned your own heart. One evening in the fall of 1882, Olivia and Vincent sat on their porch, as they had done so many times before, watching the sun set over the Kansas prairie. Thomas, now 9 years old, was teaching 3-year-old John how to feed the chickens. Their laughter carried clearly in the still evening air. "Do you remember that day you showed up at my fence?" Olivia asked, leaning her head on Vincent's shoulder. "Every detail. I remember thinking you were the most stubborn, independent woman I had ever met, and the most beautiful." Olivia laughed. I was a mess, covered in dirt, half starved, desperate. You were strong, fierce, fighting for your son with everything you had. Vincent pressed a kiss to her temple. I fell in love with you that first day, I think. Watching you with Thomas, seeing how much you loved him. I knew I wanted to be part of that. Best decision I ever made, saying yes to you. Olivia turned to look at her husband, seeing the lines that time and sun had etched deeper into his face, the silver starting to thread through his dark hair. He had never been more handsome to her. You gave me everything, Vincent. A partner, a father for Thomas, a family, love. You gave me the same. A home, a purpose, a reason to stay in one place. He took her hand, his thumb tracing over the gold band she still wore. I love you more now than I did the day we married, and I'll love you more tomorrow than I do today. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their sons, feeling the gentle evening breeze, secure in the knowledge that they had built something real and lasting. The town that had once judged Olivia so harshly now held up her family as an example of respectability and success. But Olivia did not care about that anymore. What mattered was the love within these walls, the boys who were growing strong and kind, the man beside her who had seen her at her lowest and said she was enough. Thomas came running up to the porch, John toddling after him as fast as his little legs could carry him. Mama, Papa, can we go down to the creek before dark? I want to show John the tadpoles. Take a lantern, Vincent said, and be back before full dark. And hold your brother's hand near the water. I will. Thomas grabbed John's hand and the lantern, heading off toward the creek with the careful responsibility of an older brother who took his duties seriously. He's a good boy, Vincent said, watching them go. You raised him well, even before I came along. We're raising him well, Olivia corrected. Together, the way it should be. As darkness fell over the homestead, Vincent and Olivia went inside to prepare for the evening. They moved around each other with the easy familiarity of a couple who had built a life together through work and love and dedication. Later, after the boys were asleep and the house was quiet, they lay in bed together, wrapped in each other's arms. Do you ever think about that day in town? Vincent asked quietly. When you delivered the calf and those women said all those terrible things? Sometimes, but not with anger anymore, just with gratitude that you were there to see it, that you saw something different than they did. I saw the truth. I saw a mother who loved her son enough to do whatever it took to provide for him. I saw courage and skill and compassion. I saw a woman worth knowing, worth loving, worth building a life with. Vincent tightened his arms around her, and I saw exactly what I still see every day. The best mother, the best wife, the best person I know. Olivia kissed him, long and slow and deep, pouring all her love and gratitude into the touch. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling in the darkness. I love you, Vincent Vale. I love you too, Olivia Vale. Today, tomorrow, and all the days after that. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, secure in their love and their life. Outside, the Kansas wind whispered through the prairie grass, and the stars wheeled overhead in their ancient patterns. The homestead stood solid and strong, a testament to what could be built when two people chose to face the world together. Years continued to pass, bringing the joys and challenges that make up a life fully lived. In 1884, Olivia gave birth to a daughter they named Sarah, a bright-eyed girl who had her father's smile and her mother's determination. Thomas, now 11, and John, 5, were devoted to their baby sister, competing to see who could make her laugh the hardest. The homestead expanded as the family grew. Vincent built an addition onto the house, giving each child their own room and creating a proper office for Olivia, where she could keep records of her animal clients and store her supplies. The dairy operation now included 8 cows, and they had started raising horses as well, a venture that proved profitable as the demand for good working horses remained high. Thomas showed a natural aptitude for animal husbandry, often accompanying his mother on her calls and learning her techniques. By the time he was 14, he could handle many basic cases on his own, and Olivia began to dream of the day when they might work together as partners, the Zimmerman Vale animal healing practice, mother and son serving the region together. John was different, more interested in the mechanics of how things worked than in the animals themselves. He loved helping Vincent with repairs, taking apart and rebuilding anything he could get his hands on. Vincent encouraged this curiosity, teaching the boy everything he knew about carpentry, metalwork, and the practical skills needed to keep a homestead running. Sarah, as she grew from baby to toddler to little girl, proved to be a force of nature. She climbed everything, asked endless questions, and refused to accept that there was anything her brothers could do that she could not do just as well. Vincent doted on his daughter, but he also encouraged her independence, teaching her to ride and rope and handle tools alongside her brothers. Through all of this, Olivia and Vincent's love continued to deepen. They had learned each other's rhythms and moods, knew when to push and when to give space, how to fight fair and make up thoroughly. They were partners in every sense, making decisions together, supporting each other's dreams, presenting a united front to their children and the world. The town of Salina had grown considerably by the mid-1880s, the railroad bringing new prosperity and new people. The story of Olivia and Vincent had become something of a local legend, told as an example of how love and determination could overcome adversity. Young couples starting out would sometimes come to them for advice, and Olivia would smile and say the same thing every time. Find someone who sees the best in you, even when you cannot see it in yourself, and then work every day to be worthy of that vision. One summer evening in 1887, the whole family gathered on the porch after dinner. Thomas was 17 now, tall and strong, already being courted by several young women in town, though he seemed oblivious to their attentions. John was 8, all energy and enthusiasm, currently pestering his father with questions about how to build a better mousetrap. Sarah, at 3, was curled up in Olivia's lap, fighting sleep with the stubbornness that characterized her every waking moment. Vincent looked around at his family, at the homestead they had built, at the life they had created together, and felt a contentment so profound it was almost painful. He caught Olivia's eye across the porch, and she smiled at him, that special smile that was his alone. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. "About how lucky I am, about how different my life would be if I had ridden past this place all those years ago instead of stopping." "I'm the lucky one," Olivia countered. "You saved us, Vincent, Thomas and me. You gave us everything." "We saved each other," Vincent said firmly. "I was just drifting before I found you. You gave me purpose, a reason to stay, a home. You made me into the man I always wanted to be." Thomas looked up from the knife he was sharpening. "Are you two being mushy again?" "Yes," they said in unison, then laughed. "You will understand someday," Vincent told his son. "When you find the right person, you'll know. And all the mush in the world won't be enough to express what you feel." Thomas rolled his eyes with the exaggerated tolerance of a teenager, but there was affection in his expression. He had never known anything but a loving home, parents who respected and cherished each other, stability and security. It had shaped him into a confident, kind young man, and both Olivia and Vincent were proud of him beyond words. As the stars came out and the prairie night settled around them, the family lingered together, reluctant to break the peaceful spell of the evening. Finally, Sarah's eyes drifted shut despite her best efforts, and Olivia carried her inside to bed. The boys followed shortly after, leaving Vincent and Olivia alone on the porch as they had been so many times before. "Do you ever regret it?" Olivia asked, settling into her husband's arms. "Tying yourself to a woman with a child, taking on all my problems. Never. Not for one single second." Vincent kissed the top of her head. "You and Thomas were never problems to be solved, Olivia. You were gifts to be treasured. and every day since has only confirmed that I made the right choice. The best choice, Olivia corrected, tilting her face up to kiss him properly. For both of us. They sat there until late into the night, talking and dreaming and planning, secure in their love and their life. The town that had once condemned Olivia now celebrated her family as one of the finest in the region, but that had never been the goal. The goal had always been simpler and more profound: to love and be loved, to build something lasting, to create a home where children could grow strong and safe. In the years that followed, the Vale family continued to thrive. Thomas eventually married a schoolteacher named Emily, and they took over the running of the homestead, allowing Vincent and Olivia to slow down a bit as they entered their later years. John went east to study engineering, but he came home every summer and eventually returned for good, using his education to bring modern innovations to the Kansas prairie. Sarah grew into a beautiful, fierce young woman who shocked the town by becoming a veterinarian herself, one of the first women in Kansas to do so officially. She apprenticed with her mother and then went on to formal training, returning to work alongside Olivia in the practice that had sustained the family for so long. Vincent and Olivia grew old together, their hair turning silver, their faces weathering like the prairie itself. But their love never weathered. If anything, it grew stronger, deeper, richer with every passing year. They had built a legacy that extended far beyond their own lives, a family rooted in love and respect, a homestead that would pass down through generations, and a story that would be told for years to come. On a warm spring evening in 1903, Vincent and Olivia sat on the same porch where they had spent so many evenings before. They were both in their 50s now, slowed by time but still active and engaged with life. Their children were grown, giving them grandchildren to dote on. The homestead hummed with the activity of multiple generations working together. "Do you remember the first time we sat here together?" Olivia asked, her hand clasped in Vincent's. "I remember everything about those early days. How scared you were, how brave, how I knew even then that I wanted to spend my life beside you." "The town accused me of being a bad mother," Olivia said softly, echoing the words that had once cut her so deeply. "And you said you had never seen better. I meant it then, and I mean it now. You are the finest mother I have ever known. You raised Thomas with love and courage when you had nothing. You raised our children together with me to be strong, kind, capable people. You gave them everything that truly matters." Olivia leaned her head on Vincent's shoulder, feeling the solid strength of him that had been her anchor for 25 years. "We gave them everything together. That's the secret, I think. Not doing it alone, but finding someone to stand beside you. Someone who sees you at your worst and still thinks you are wonderful. Someone who loves you not despite your struggles, but because of how you face them." Vincent agreed. "That is what I found in you, Olivia. That is what I will love until my last breath." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set over the Kansas prairie, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. In the distance, they could hear their grandchildren laughing, playing the same games their own children had played in this very yard. The homestead they had built together stood strong and proud, a testament to what two people could create when they chose love over fear, partnership over judgment, and faith over doubt. As darkness fell, Vincent helped Olivia to her feet, and they walked inside together, hand in hand, as they had done for 25 years. Their love story had begun with scandal and judgment, with a desperate woman and a wandering cowboy who saw something others missed. It had grown through hard work and dedication, through the choice to love even when it would have been easier not to. And it had blossomed into something beautiful and lasting, a love that had created a family, built a legacy, and proved that sometimes the best things in life come from the choices others call foolish. In the bedroom they had shared for so many years, Vincent helped Olivia out of her dress with the tenderness of long practice. They climbed into bed together, fitting together like pieces of a puzzle worn smooth by time and touch. Vincent wrapped his arms around his wife, and Olivia pressed back against his warmth, secure in the knowledge that she was loved completely and without reservation. I love you, she whispered into the darkness. I love you more, Vincent replied, the old argument that was really just another way of saying the same thing. Impossible, inevitable. They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other and in the life they had built. Outside, the Kansas stars wheeled overhead, eternal and unchanging. The homestead settled into its own sleep, sheltering the family that had made it a home. And in the morning, they would wake together as they had done for 25 years, ready to face whatever the new day brought, side by side, heart to heart, partners in the truest sense of the word. The years continued to flow like water, bringing changes and constants in equal measure. Vincent and Olivia celebrated their 30th anniversary in 1908, surrounded by their children, grandchildren, and a community that had long since forgotten its initial judgment. The homestead had become one of the most successful in the region, a place known for quality livestock, innovative farming practices, and a family that exemplified the best of frontier values: hard work, integrity, and love. Thomas and Emily had given them 4 grandchildren, and they ran the daily operations of the homestead with the same dedication Vincent and Olivia had shown. John had married a fellow engineer, and they lived in Salina proper, where he had opened a shop designing and building farm equipment that made life easier for everyone in the region. Sarah remained unmarried by choice, focused on her veterinary practice and the animals she served with the same passionate dedication her mother had always shown. On a crisp autumn day in 1910, Olivia was called out to a difficult birth at a ranch 30 miles away. Vincent wanted to go with her, but his knees had been bothering him lately, making long rides difficult. Sarah went instead, and they were gone for 2 days. When they returned, exhausted but successful, Vincent was waiting on the porch, just as he always was. But something was different. Olivia saw it immediately in the way he held himself, in the slight pallor of his skin. She hurried up the steps, her heart in her throat. "What's wrong? Are you ill?" "Just tired, my love. These old bones are not what they used to be." Vincent smiled, but Olivia could see the strain in it. She insisted he see the doctor, and after much argument, Vincent agreed. The doctor's diagnosis was grave. Vincent's heart was failing, worn out by decades of hard work and hard living. There were no treatments, no cures. He had months, maybe a year if he was lucky and careful. The news shattered Olivia. Vincent had been her rock, her partner, her love for 32 years. The idea of losing him was incomprehensible, unbearable. But Vincent himself seemed almost peaceful about it. "I have had a good life, Olivia. Better than I ever dreamed possible. I found love, built a home, raised a family. I have no regrets. But I am not ready to lose you," Olivia said through her tears. "I need more time. We need more time." "Then we will make every day count," Vincent said firmly, taking her hands in his. "We will not waste what time we have on fear and sadness. We will live, my love. We will love. And when my time comes, you will know that every single day we had together was a gift I treasured beyond measure." And so they did. Vincent slowed down, letting Thomas take over more of the heavy work, but he stayed active and engaged. He played with his grandchildren, worked on small projects around the homestead, and spent long hours with Olivia, talking and reminiscing and simply being together. They took walks in the evening, holding hands like young sweethearts. They sat on the porch and watched the sunsets. They made love with a tenderness that came from knowing each moment was precious. The whole family rallied around them. Thomas and Emily moved into the main house to help with daily tasks. John came home every weekend, and Sarah rearranged her practice schedule to spend more time with her parents. The grandchildren, ranging from teenagers to toddlers, filled the house with life and laughter, giving Vincent joy in his final months. On a warm spring evening in 1911, as the prairie was coming back to life after the winter, Vincent and Olivia sat on their porch one last time. Vincent was weak now. His breathing labored, but he insisted on this, their ritual, one more time. Do you remember the first time we sat here? Olivia asked, her voice breaking. I remember everything, my love. Every moment with you is etched in my heart forever. Vincent's hand trembled in hers, but his grip was still strong. You gave me everything, Olivia. A home, a family, a reason to live. You made me the man I always wanted to be. You saved me, Olivia whispered. You saw me when no one else would. You loved me when I could not love myself. You gave me strength and hope and a future. We saved each other, Vincent said, echoing the words he had spoken so many times over the years. That is what love does. It sees the best in us and calls it forth. It makes us braver, stronger, better than we could ever be alone. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun paint the sky in brilliant colors. Their children and grandchildren were inside, giving them these last moments of privacy. The prairie wind whispered through the grass, carrying with it the sense of spring and new beginnings. I am not afraid, Vincent said quietly, because I know you will be all right. You are the strongest person I have ever known, Olivia. You survived before me, and you will thrive after me. And you will know, every single day, that you were loved completely, perfectly, without reservation. I will never stop loving you, Olivia said, tears streaming down her face. In this life or the next, you are my heart, Vincent Vale, and you are mine, today, tomorrow, and in all the tomorrows I will not see. I love you, Olivia. I have never seen better, not as a mother, not as a wife, not as a person. You are and have always been absolutely perfect. Those were the last words Vincent spoke. He died peacefully that night in his own bed, in the house he had helped build, surrounded by the family he had loved so well. Olivia held him through those final hours, whispering her love, reminding him of all the beautiful moments they had shared, promising him that she would be strong. The grief was terrible, a physical pain that threatened to overwhelm her. But Olivia had learned long ago how to survive, how to keep going when everything seemed lost. She leaned on her children, on the grandchildren who needed her, on the community that had come to love and respect her family. She continued her veterinary work, finding solace in helping others. And she held tight to the memories of 33 years of love, of a man who had seen her at her worst and called her the best. Years passed. Olivia continued to live on the homestead, now run entirely by Thomas and his family. She became the matriarch, the keeper of stories, the wise woman the community came to for advice. Her hair turned white, her hands gnarled with age and arthritis, but her mind stayed sharp and her heart stayed open. She told the story often to her grandchildren and great-grandchildren about the town that accused her of being a bad mother, about the cowboy who said he had never seen better. She told them about courage and love, about choosing to trust even when it felt risky, about building a life with someone who truly saw you. She wanted them to know that love was not always easy or simple, but it was always worth it. On a golden afternoon in the autumn of 1925, Olivia Vale passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 72. She was surrounded by 3 generations of family in the house she and Vincent had turned into a home on the land they had worked together. Her last words were spoken to the granddaughter, sitting beside her bed. Tell them all. Tell them that love is the only thing that really matters. Everything else fades away, but love endures. She was buried beside Vincent in the small cemetery on the hill overlooking the homestead. The whole town turned out for the funeral, honoring a woman who had overcome judgment and adversity to build a legacy of love and family. The preacher spoke of her strength, her compassion, her dedication. But it was Thomas, standing at his mother's grave with tears streaming down his weathered face, who said the words that mattered most. My mother was told she was a failure. The town judged her, condemned her, tried to take me away from her. But a cowboy saw the truth. He saw a woman of courage and love, a mother who would do anything for her child. He said he had never seen better, and he spent the rest of his life proving it. Together, they built this. He gestured to the gathered crowd, to the thriving homestead below, to the family that filled the cemetery. They built love, and that love goes on. In every one of us, in every generation that comes after. That is their legacy. That is what endures. The homestead continued to thrive, passing through generations. Thomas's children took it over, then their children, each adding their own chapter to the story while honoring the foundation Vincent and Olivia had laid. The tale of the widow who was accused of being a bad mother and the cowboy who defended her became a family legend, told and retold, a reminder of where they came from and what mattered most. In 1978, on the 100th anniversary of Vincent and Olivia's first meeting, the family gathered at the homestead for a reunion. Over 100 descendants came from across Kansas and beyond to celebrate the love story that had started it all. They stood together on the land Vincent and Olivia had worked, in front of the house they had built, and raised a toast to the courage of a woman who refused to give up and the vision of a man who saw what others missed. The prairie wind blew across the gathering, carrying with it whispers of the past and promises for the future. Somewhere, in the great mystery beyond this life, two souls who had found each other against all odds were surely smiling, knowing that the love they had built had endured, had multiplied, had become something eternal. The town had accused her of being a bad mother. The cowboy had said he had never seen better. And in the end, in the legacy of love and family that stretched across generations, in the lives that had been shaped by their courage and dedication, in the story that continued to inspire, the cowboy had been proven absolutely, undeniably right.